Welcome to On My Couch. So my co-host Sue and I, what we like to do is to talk with really interesting people around interesting topics. So really keen to have and appreciative to have Liz with us today, and I'll introduce Liz in a minute. But firstly, my name's Damien, founder of OMC Group, and what we do at OMC Group is really focus on helping people work better together, whether it be through leadership development or culture or strategy. The end point is always about how we help people work better together. Sue has got a portfolio career, and so maybe introduce yourself. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Damien. So as Damien mentioned, I've got a portfolio career. Liz and I met in, quite a few years ago now when we were both at Westfield, and Liz worked in HR and learning and development. So I had an opportunity to learn a lot from Liz at my time in Westfield. Now I do a little bit of project work for a number of organisations, and I'm also the chair of Life Education Australia, which is sort of where Liz and I now come full circle because we're both working in not-for-profit organisations. And just a little bit about Life Ed, because there is a lot of synergies between Life Education and Lifeline. We're about empowering children and young people to make safer and healthier choices through education. And our vision is to ensure that healthy Australians live to their full potential. So what we basically do is we go out to schools and we talk about all the different things that kids need to know about these days, from building good friendships, understanding about cyber safety, transitioning to high school. And all of our program is evidence-based, and it's linked to providing education in children's formative years to make them lead healthier and safer lives. So yeah, it was just super cool that Liz and I, after meeting in a commercial environment, have now come full circle and both have ended up in not-for-profits. But yeah, so that's me. So thank you, Damien.
Yeah, and that's really what we want to talk about today, is explain that, and it's probably Liz and also you, Sue, as well, that the transition from corporate to non-for-profit and both organisations really having sustainable, significant positive impact on society. So Liz, let's talk a little bit more about. I'll ask you to introduce yourself, but you're currently the CEO of Lifeline Harbour to Hawkesbury. Previously Director of Student Admin at University of New South Wales. Senior roles at Transport New South Wales and Study Group, and then National HR Manager at Westfield. So really, significant career and a corporate career. So thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I'm sure those are just the headlines, right? So maybe we'll talk about Lifeline in a minute, but maybe talk about your career pre-Lifeline. So what's been your experiences? How did you build that career, and then maybe that sort of what are you most proud of so far?
Yeah, look, thanks, Damien, and thank you, Sue, too. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Yes, I've had a rich career that I've found very exciting across what I would characterise mainly as large, complex organisations, very large in scale, and that's across private, government, and in my early 40s, I transitioned into the education sector out of the true corporates like Westfield. And that led me into leading the education for Transport for New South Wales, which was just an incredible role that I absolutely loved, seeing that impact across the state that we could make. Then also a stint in international education in private equity, and also then Sydney University as the Director of Student Administration, which again, amazing scale with the tens of thousands of students they have there. And really then stepping outside my HR and industrial relations career some time ago now, and really getting into large-scale transformations, running significant operations with large numbers of staff, large leadership teams, commercial P&Ls, some very significant technology deployments. But some of the things I'm most proud of are those transformations where, together with leadership teams, we made organisations stronger. And
Okay.
that means we built the engagement of the staff, we built the effectiveness of the organisation at scale, and we built the inbuilt agility for that organisation to continue to adapt and evolve to what was coming from outside the organisation, be it sector change, technology change, and customer requirements. So I really feel like my purpose in those organisations was to make organisations stronger. And that certainly is a gift with this role now, where I'm making communities stronger. So
Right.
yeah, very excited with my career. In terms of the guidance I give men and women around that journey, because I did take some shifts through that. One of the things I always encourage people to do is build what I call connecting skills. So a lot of us come from a certain subject matter expertise. In my case, that was HR. And if you really are ambitious to get to an executive level, you won't get there by having a specialist expertise. You will get there because of your connecting skills. And that, in the primary one, is obviously leadership. How do you lead across functions? How do you develop a personal sense of leadership that is bigger than just your job description? Because executive leadership is about joining the dots. The other key skills I say to people who are ambitious: make sure you sit in every finance meeting you can. Make sure you pick up as much law as you can. You really need to know the commercial governance and legal structures of organisations, and you need to know the commercial drivers. This day and age, you must have digital savviness as well, and understand how technology can enable an organisation, because otherwise you end up with very expensive administration. Technology is both a personalisation opportunity for customers, but it is also a massive efficiency enabler. And what we saw at Sydney University, Transport for New South Wales, is it also means you can get the best out of your people. So rather than your people pushing paper, technology enabled us at Sydney University to turn on academic advice. It enabled us to turn on complex queries rather than having these great expert people doing transactional queries. So connecting skills. The next piece, particularly as a woman, was to speak up, let people know I was ambitious, tap into mentors who were keen to sponsor my journey, and grab those opportunities. So most of my career transition was by speaking up and grabbing projects outside my role at the time, and demonstrating that I wasn't just a person of my subject matter expertise. So in Westfield, for example, as Sue would know, I got involved in a global technology project, nothing to do with HR. But that gave me exposure. It gave me access to operating model design. It gave me access to another key connecting skill, which is project leadership and project management. One of the most difficult things in transformation. Everyone could come up with what should happen. One of the most difficult pieces in transformation is how to implement it, embed it, and sustain that change ongoing. So that was that. And then I think the other piece, which I really see is not sufficiently conversed about these days, is actually your own personal leadership. If I think about my personal leadership style back in the Westfield days and compare it to now, I have worked very deliberately, very hard on what I call the fine-tuning of the volume button of my leadership style, where one end of the spectrum is position-based leadership and more that authority type leadership, and at the other spectrum, as Sue would know, is critical and NFPs, is personal leadership and leading in a way where people choose to follow you. You don't have positional power with volunteers. And so it comes down to your ability to excite people in the future, to engage people in the purpose and the impact they can make. And that leadership, you need to work through the impact you have on people around you. I've done a lot of work on how to maintain my calm and my stress levels as a leader, in how to be effective with the people around me. And I found that has been one of the major dial turners of my career, has been doing that work on myself. So they're my tips for career progression.
Some great,
And learning how to deal with politics. But that's another story.
That is really helpful, the way that you pitched that all up, and there's some great advice in there. So Lifeline is obviously a household name. We've all heard of it, but help us understand a little bit more about the organisation itself. You know, what's the structure? How does it work? And how does it measure its success? And how do you influence that?
Yes, yeah. Lifeline, as we all know, is a household name. The understanding, though, and such a great question, what is the structure? Lifeline originated 61 years ago in a church. So Alan Walker was a minister, and he received a call from a very distressed person, obviously in a church environment. Suicide had a lot of taboo and a lot of stigma. Unfortunately, that man later died by suicide, and that really drove Sir Alan Walker to say, we have to do something about this. And that is when he set up the 13 11 14 number. Due to the telephone exchanges, that incredible first phone call was then replicated across Australia through the telephone exchanges. And that is the origins of Lifeline. A bit over 20 years ago, Lifeline Australia was established. So those local lifelines have been around. So mine, for example, is 55 years old, delivering that crisis line across the northern suburbs of Sydney. So the organisation has grown from a grassroots, and Lifeline Australia now plays this really critical, important and fantastic role as that peak member body. They support the technology, the brand, which means we have strong recognition for help seekers to reach out to that brand, but also, very importantly, the unique skills and accreditation of the skills at the end of the phone. Not many people are aware, but it is a rigorous training and re-accreditation every year, and it is a unique accredited skill set to do crisis support, to ensure that we are holding people safe, but also to preserve any vicarious trauma of those crisis supporters as well. So how it's evolved, certainly the Lifeline has stepped beautifully and strongly into the advocacy towards zero suicides. How do we eliminate suicide in Australia? And going forward, some of those evolutions is how do we help the help seeker across different services? At the moment, you know, we all would like a wraparound care, but I talk about it as pass around because everyone's being bounced between different providers. Again, here technology can play a key role. So Lifeline Australia is doing some fantastic work with other key organisations like Beyond Blue, Men's Line, 1-800 Respect, to talk about how we can do crisis support, but then do the warm handovers to longer term care for people. And if we can effectively connect that then to the health network, emergency departments and hospitals, we start to see a systematic care framework for our population. Whereas at the moment, I think we would all agree it's highly disaggregated, and there are certain aspects of it that are also highly inaccessible and costly. So there's some big systems-based work to do. So I'd say that's a strong evolution of Lifeline Australia across the network that's taken place.
Wow, and you're right. It's in not-for-profits, the pace of which you're able to move and achieve the ultimate goal, obviously sometimes is challenging, because you're right, you're relying on a lot of volunteers. That's probably, I suppose, one of the key parts of your role, I'm guessing, is really working with those teams and getting them to understand the vision and where the future lies for Lifeline.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So, my organisation, we have over 1,000 paid and volunteer staff. Our geography, if you like, stretches from the Harbour Bridge to the Brooklyn Bridge, out to Castle Hill and out to Middle Harbour. It's about a population of 600,000 people in that area of northern Sydney. I talk about 5 aspects of our organisation. The first one is our contribution to national crisis support, which is with 13, 11, 14 and the text and chat line, which we were very proud to launch for New South Wales last year. That's our national contribution to reducing suicides. Then locally, we do a lot of work in suicide prevention. We have very strong relationships with 3 police area commands, 7 local councils, with some of Sydney's major hospitals and their emergency departments, and then with the plethora of incredible service providers where Headspace, there's Link Housing, there's numerous women's shelters on how we actually start to eradicate some of the drivers of people reaching that point of crisis. And that we're seeing a lot around financial distress, obviously, a lot of people using the word homeless, risk of homeless that I've never heard as much as I've heard in the last 12 months, domestic violence, but also the long-standing effects of youth and children having experienced childhood trauma, and that translating into young adult and adult mental health issues, which is, Sue, where you and I and our organisations come together for long-term prevention. We also then, which is part of why I love the role, as well as that incredible impact and purpose of what we're doing nationally and locally every day, we then have a retail organisation, which really powers the commercial strength of Lifeline Harbour to Hawkesbury, Sydney. And then we have 300 incredible volunteers that run our book fairs at Barker, Knox. And those book fairs are just a joy to behold. They're known in the community. We ferry around, I think it's, oh gosh, I've got it wrong. I'm going to get the number wrong. Anyway, we have 18,000 people come to our book fairs every year. Wow. And the contribution it makes is just incredible. I always say to donors, because Lifeline Harbour to Hawkesbury has such a strong commercial backing through our retail operations, the board and the executive done a fantastic job with our balance sheet. What that means is that every donation, every book sold at a book fair, every fundraising event goes directly to help-seeking services. We have built, which is a privilege as a not-for-profit, we've built the commercial strength to fund our own operations and our overheads. And that means when people donate to us, they are donating to making a difference to someone's life.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's and it's interesting, you know, in terms of, and you started off in terms of, you know, how you've developed your career, and I love that phrase about, you know, you're turning up the volume or turning down the volume as well. And
yeah.
if we and you started to explore this a little bit, but we think about your role as you know, CEO of Lifeline Harbour to Hawkesbury. So, you know, maybe can you talk to us about the scope of your particular, you know, role, and what do you love about it, and then, you know, what are the challenges which may well, you know, I won't, I'm curious to hear those.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks, Damien. So the scope of my role, I mean, a major part of, a couple of major parts of my role is, firstly, I call it treading the boards. I'm out there to spread the word about what we do. I'm there to engage the community. I see us playing a critical role as a community leader and to help join dots to save lives. My second role is out there to ask people to support those efforts through either sponsoring us or donating, and to spread that word about, if you donate to us, we're doing tangible, measurable projects where you'll have outcomes. And so I'm out treading the boards a lot. My other absolute role is enabling the incredible team of staff and volunteers. Have they got the support they need? Have they got the leadership, the physical assets, and the technology to do what they're doing? And so I see a role in paving the way for the incredible team. What do I love about it? The people are just incredible. 40% of our workforce have either volunteered or worked for us for over 15 years.
Wow.
I've never seen loyalty. We've just completed our engagement survey, and the engagement was 91%.
That's incredible.
So it's just a privilege when you are. I've just had an executive out of Deutsche Bank join us, and like I found, you get this palpable sense of belonging and care and excitement when you join this organisation. I also am very driven by the personally to make an impact. I was brought up very much in strong principles of, you know, when you have some privilege and security growing up, you don't use that to have power, you use that to make a difference, and those values of service. So I'm very driven to watch the current gaps in the system for help seekers, for our community, for our families, for our youth. I feel like I've just scratched the surface, and I'm determined that we're going to do something about that. So what I love is I'm in a role where I can do that. And I've got a fantastic team and the commercial backing of our supporters and our own commercial base to do that. And so I think the other aspect is, as a not-for-profit versus being in a very large organisation or in government, we are nimble.
Okay.
So we can actually put things on the ground very quickly. And so in discussions with government, I tell them, we're a speedboat. You're the QE2. And so, you know, use us. So, I mean, a primary example was there's this massive gap for people in crisis, but also people who need to talk locally. Counselling, psychs have wait lists 3+ months. It's very inaccessible, or cost inaccessible at the moment as well. So we had an idea middle of last year that we'd take crisis supporters out from behind the phones and put them in local libraries. We delivered that within 3 months.
Wow.
So with great credit to Hornsby Council, they've given us the space for free. Our local Bendigo Bank stepped up with some sponsorship. Each of those centres is staffed by accredited crisis supporters, and it's had the most amazing local response. And we have the richness of our local community now able to access Lifeline in person, anonymously, with no cost, with no appointment. And that is scalable. We're opening at Stanton Library in 2 weeks, and at Willoughby Library about a month later.
Okay.
And each of those centres costs about $5,000.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You go.
No, that's okay. So, yeah, it's just, it can be done. And I think part of that is I see these large organisations caught up in their silo and in the constraints of the fact they're either within their government or within their private organisation, and I think we can cut across that and do partnerships and work together, and we'll get stuff done. There's clear gaps, and so for me, I have this sense of urgency because I know we can do it, and I just can't do it fast enough.
And so, I mean, that's fascinating. Actually, being involved with our local community bank as well. That's awesome. I love that connection piece as well. And you mentioned the executive from Deutsche Bank that's recently joined, and just interested in terms of difference and similarities to previous executive roles that you've had. And I mean, you've started to signal a few of those, which is really interesting. But yeah, what have you noticed? And when we're talking about differences, doesn't mean it's not good or bad. It's just different, right? So what are the differences?
Yes, I'd say the differences are, I feel the very large benefit of having had the corporate background with a lot of the frameworks, the tools and the techniques that we've used in large scale. The difference is making those fit for purpose to an organisation with an NFP culture, with an NFP balance sheet and commercial line, and not applying a corporate sledgehammer. So I'd say it's taking the best out of the corporate, but it's very much tailoring it to an NFP would be one key difference. The other key difference I touched on earlier, Damien, is very much the leadership style. That is a transformational shift from what you could do in a private sector.
Yep. Okay, great. And final question, and then I'll give you a chance to ask a question. But the decision to become CEO of an NFP, was that sort of, you've mentioned the principles and the upbringing and of your that your family brought forward. Is that something that was always on your radar, or
Yeah.
how did that transition occur?
Yes, and I was thriving in the corporate environment. Absolutely loved it, because I do like the adrenaline part that brings, and certainly the commercial aspects, Damien. But about probably 8 years ago, so certainly some time ago, it was once I came out of private equity, and certainly following my experience with government, I realised for myself that I wanted to lead in an environment that was not driven by a dividend or profit. I wanted a complex commercial changing environment, but I wanted that to come with either purpose to the public or purpose to a purpose and making impact. And so I had that at the back of my mind, and was enjoying my career and certainly having a fantastic time at Sydney University. And then I was at a function talking to someone I've known for a very long time, who used to be a search consultant, and I'd never talked to her about this before. And I just said, one day I'd really like to run a charity. And she said, Liz, she said, just today I've accepted the assignment for this role.
Wow.
And I just hugged her and I said, that's my job. And I went through the process, but to me, it's just always I had that vision in my mind, and yeah, it's a gift.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, that's how fortuitous for you. But also, I was thinking about that's got to be the easiest executive search that person's ever done.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, lucky for her, the board agreed. So yeah.
Liz, we had a chance to catch up last week, and just sort of bringing it back to sort of what are we today, the 16th of February. With everything that's going on in Australia at the moment, you shared with me that homelessness piece and people living in beautiful houses and beautiful mansions at the moment, but just no furniture. What does 2024, really look like? For and what are you seeing as the 2024 Sydney life?
Yes, so firstly, I think life has been like whitewater rafting for people the last 4 years, Sue, through COVID, and there's been no ease up. So even after COVID, we've then had natural disasters, we've then had interest rates growing. And so a lot of what we're seeing is not just crisis that's built up in the short term, but this crisis after crisis situation for people. And what we find is Australians and refugees and everyone are incredible. They all try to cope. And we find that people within their own households and their own families are trying to cope. They're either paying the mortgage or they're foregoing food or medication just to cope. I think that those whitewater rafts are going to continue for the rest of this year. What we always feel pain about is by the time people come to us or our peer service providers, we all wish they'd come earlier. There is so much help out there. The banks are really stepping up. There's service providers, there's access to help. And our dearest hope would be that people know and reach out when things are just starting to get difficult and not when they're in crisis. And that's for their health and well-being as well. So organisations like Lifeline can help the population navigate that 24 hours a day. You can ring anonymously. you can say the worst thing that's happening to you and just be heard and not be judged. But what they can then do is help you work out where you can go to actually mitigate your situation and get some support. So that, I think, Sue, we are going to continue to have a tough year. That is across an increasing portion of those sectors. Like you said, we have the people on Centrelink and JobSeeker, where they're really struggling, you know, just above the poverty line and sometimes just below. And so unforeseen events like medical emergencies or family emergencies can really sort of just be the last straw for people like that. And then we have the people that look like us, who behind those houses have a lot of crisis and situational distress happening. And our biggest request would be, please reach out. You don't have to be seen. It's anonymous, but there is so much help.
That's really great advice. We were talking to another person on the couch, and we're saying about how a lot of times Australia, well, we're not good at promoting ourselves and telling how good we are and all the things that we achieve. But equally, we're probably not so good at being able to reach out for help when we really need it. And we tend to play in this middle piece. And I think that's a really great piece of advice is put your hand up early. As you say, it can be anonymous. You can just get a steer in a direction, and it might unlock a very, what is a small issue or a smallish issue before it becomes a larger one. So I think that's good story, not just in the certain social environment, but also in your work environment too. I mean, you can apply that same message, like before you get to a point where I don't know what to do, you've actually put your hand up and say, hey, I need some help here.
Yes, that's right.
That vulnerability piece is important across all quadrants in your life, whether it's your work life, your community life, your family life, or just your own general well-being.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm really conscious of time. We could keep on talking, and I suppose just building on that discussion that Sue just took us down as well. I mean, is there any? It's it's a simple question for what is sometimes a complex issue. But is there any advice that you would give? That, you know, either from a Lifeline organisation perspective, or also from a colleague or friend, as Sue just talked about, if they wanted help or they wanted to offer help, is there any sort of simple advice?
I might talk about people who want to offer help as a friend, Damien. So we always want to help. We can't bear to see someone's pain, so we try and solve their pain. We don't need to do that. Part of the skill and the trust and the enduring legacy of Lifeline is they don't try and solve people's pain. You hold the space. One of the most powerful things we can do ourselves if we're stressing about something is just to verbalize it, get it out of our head, and acknowledge the emotions that is causing us. When we don't do that and we deny those emotions, that's when it affects us. Physically, we leak in other ways with other people. And so just being heard is the most powerful way to reduce someone's distress. And so as a friend, if you see someone who you believe is struggling, connecting with their emotions and asking how they're feeling, not, you know, are you okay? Usually get a yes answer, but if you ask how you're feeling, and you don't need to solve their problem, but just by acknowledging those feelings is very powerful. And what it often does is it takes people beyond, because they've felt heard, it takes people beyond seeing a brick wall of crisis that they can't see past. And that's the scary part, where people can't see past the pain. And so if you sit with the person and you listen to their emotions and acknowledge those, usually it's this lovely transition. People then become open to thinking about what's past that pain, and that's a beautiful thing to hear and to see people happen. So I think I would just encourage people, when you do see someone in distress, to sit with them, be gentle, share the warmth with them. You don't have to solve their problem, just be with them.
What a great insight and yeah, really powerful. So I always quite often ask Sue this question. So what's Liz got you thinking about after today's On My Couch?
I think the opportunity to bring your whole self and be I think what Liz has been able to do with the organisation is really that whole piece around, I need to know when I need to play golf with this club, and I need to when I play golf with this club. And I think that whole leadership piece and you know, that means you've got to, I'm guessing, demonstrate your own vulnerability at times too when tasks appear insurmountable or challenges appear insurmountable. So that's what I took away is that it's not a one size fits all.
Terrific. Liz, thank you so much. We could keep on going, but we really wanted to say thank you very much. Really enjoyed this conversation, and it's a very, enjoyed probably not the right word, but found it very insightful. It's probably a better word for it. So thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do, and also the work that your team does as well, and really appreciate you being so generous with your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. Thanks, Sue. Such a pleasure.
Perfect. Sue, thank you very much for your time again, and look forward to being on our respective couches again soon. From an OMC Group perspective, what we do is help people work better together, which in some way, if we can help people work better together, might also be a small contribution to the topic that we've been talking about today as well. So if you want to learn more about OMC Group, have a look at our website, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on our couch.